Welcome back to the Dopest Show you won't get sick of. I'm Spencer, and this is Sasha. Spent most of my 20s in federal prison, but have been off heroin since April 9, 2010. Got a lot of stories about the dumb stuff I did to get put in prison. I've also got a lot of stories about the crazy stuff that actually happened when I was in prison, and God forbid you end up in prison. You want to make some of the same mistakes I made. I've had a lot of friends rob pharmacies. This guy wasn't a friend, but I mean, he showed up at this halfway. Let me get to it. Lord have mercy. This is some wild stuff. I want to tell some funny stuff first off. So, I end up moving into this halfway house. I'm not in drug court at this point. I've been in a halfway house a couple times. They're called Oxford houses. They're all over the country. There's like 8 of them in Roanoke, Virginia. So they got people with positions of power, like people like, you don't get paid. It's just like these people take pride in it and they like having authority. So you have to call, and I set up an appointment, and the person I speak to on the phone, you hear a voice and you kind of like get an image of what the person looks like. So I think I'm going to get to this halfway house, and this person who does not live at this halfway house, but like they're the president of all the houses. I speak to him. He sounds like a skinny gay white man. And I get to the house, and this dude is 220 pounds, black dude with braids, and looks tough as can be. But just, the voice of it wasn't what I expected whenever I got there. Really nice guy, though, and I do have to say, there were some people, and I'll get to that later. There was one of them tried me, and I was scared as could be. Talk about predators. Yeah, I had to pull a steel out on him and chase him. He tried to come, who knows what he's doing. He's probably going to try to pull a meat shank. Before he pulled that meat shank, I was going to put a steel shank inside of him. Man, that scared me. I'm not going to lie. This guy looked like Mr. Slade from South Park come to life. He's about 6'2", 220. Not like a hulking muscular force, but I mean, it's a big man. I wasn't that big at that time. That's another story. I'll tell that one. That's a funny one, actually. It's actually why I got kicked out of the house, I believe. I believe after I tried to, leave him leaking everywhere. Twice, I tried to do that. I believe he told on me using and, got me kicked out. I'm pretty sure. So anyhow, after you sit down for this interview, and the people in the house basically vote you in or say you can't go. They always vote it, whoever comes in. I mean, it's just what the way it is. So I sit down, and the one guy I know him because he used to buy from somebody I sold to, and there was a particular incident where he was wanting a good bit, but I didn't deal with him, and I thought he was setting us up. We went on like this high-speed runaway from them, thinking that we were running from the police, but we weren't. It's just unfortunate circumstances. I knew him. There's another guy who's younger too. Then there's this guy who's in his mid-30s, white guy with glasses, probably about 155 pounds, 5'9". And after this interview, they set me in the house. The guy I spoke on, the guy who's the president that was there, starts walking around the house, going, and he looks at each corner of the room. And I sold dope since I was 14. I didn't have a whole lot of practical skills or home improvement or none of that. And he starts talking about, yeah, this room really needs some caulk right here. I need some caulk right here too. Yeah, there really needs some. It really needs caulk in here. And I'm like, and they're like, "Oh, you okay over there?" They thought I was having like some type of an asthma attack or something. And I was like, "What are you saying? There needs to be in here?" And he's like, "Caulk." And I'm like, "What?" And that's when they realized it, and they bust out laughing too. They're like, "Caulk, C-A-U-L-K." I think that's how it's spelled. It like goes in the windows for insulation or whatever. I thought he was saying something else. With like the feminine voice. Like I thought that's what he was saying. But yeah, that dude, the president of my house, he was respectful. He was what he was, and if you open yourself up to that type of playing, but he knew that like I wasn't comfortable with that. I respect people and stuff like that. And I can't say I had problems with that dude. He was respectful, cool, so it was business, But the other guy who I'll talk about, another one, yeah. So, anyway, after he leaves, they're basically trying to feel me out, see if I'm cool or not. And basically, once they find out I ain't going to tell on them, they break out the beer, they're drinking. So this is what they call a sick house. It's a halfway house where people are getting messed up. They're doing drugs, everything else, every other type of thing. So anyway, there ends up being another interview with a new person that shows up at this house. I know this dude. I know him because I used to be the driver for his brother, who used to be the biggest dope kingpin in the city. I started driving for his brother when I was 16. Now, he was the adopted brother of that guy. This dude, He was a gay dude, but you wouldn't ever know it unless he got like in a tizzy or scared about something, and then you'd know it. But anyway, he was a meat truck driver too. That kind of makes it funnier too. He had this thing where he'd show up and he'd sell meat to houses. Okay, like he'd have this freezer on the back of his truck, and he'd show up at a house and he'd be like, "Excuse me, miss, excuse me, sir. I'm from so and so meats, and I had a delivery here. The person wasn't there to pick it up. I can't take it back. So I've got the catalog here with the prices. I can sell it to you for half price." The people think, "Wow, that's a deal." The catalogs are way marked up. Way marked up. So that was his hustle. That was his speech. And he would sell out the whole freezer of meat every single day. And he'd have $300 that he'd make profit every single day. They basically pay you for what you make for the day on the spot. And he'd smoke every bit of it up and rock every single day. Now, anyway, so he has a boyfriend who he's talked about a good bit. And, this dude shows up and he's like gangster as could be, black dude. And you wouldn't guess him either. That dude's going to come back here in a minute. I'm going to get to that. At the time of this, though, the guy who was middle-aged from when I first moved in the house, probably about 35, he wasn't middle-aged, he's about as old as I am now, and I'm calling myself middle-aged if I say that. Now, he had the two younger guys convinced that he was a Russian hitman. He knew like 20 words in Russian, okay? And he's talking about one strike, one kill, and, Russian mafia. He worked with them, and he had to do what he had to do to save this orphanage full of children. I'm thinking Russian mafia ain't worried about no orphanage full of children unless they're getting some orphans from the children and to sell them off. They're probably doing harm to kids, like that. But he had this whole fabricated lies, fabrication stories that he told that he had these two younger guys believing. This is a funny story to tie in. So there was another person who ended up in the house that puts all the people in the house that are in this story at this point. So the guy who shows up, I know him from a rehab. His nickname was Blind, because he had these thick glasses and he's still squinting like this. I got some stories about him. He's a funny dude. But he was 63 years old, Vietnam vet, probably about 6'3", 190, 200, fit for older man. But I mean, he kind of walked like an old man, everything else. And the meat truck driver came hollering for him one day, "You got to do something." Because I was the president of the halfway house. Don't ask me how I was president of this halfway house. And he's like, "You got to do something." So I go downstairs and I see the Russian hitman in the corner. I see Blind standing over here, ready to hit him again. And the people in the middle are like, "Whoa," trying to separate him. And I'm like, whoa, what's going on? And basically what had happened was he was like, the Russian hitman's like, "He hit me. I did not." And I'm like, "Curtis, he's got a handprint on his face. Kind of looks like you might have put a hand on him." And I'm grinning at this point, and the meat truck driver's just like, "Oh my God!" And the whole dynamic of me being a president don't mean a thing because everybody in this house is getting messed up. Everybody in this house is getting high. I mean, this is not a power system of a halfway house that's going to keep stuff running efficiently because nobody's following the rules, okay? But for some reason, he came to me thinking I'm going to do something. What am I going to do? I mean, the meat truck driver's like 6 foot, 200 pounds. I'm 5'9", 140. And I mean, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Nothing. So anyway, I said, "Curtis, it kind of looks like you might have smacked." And the Russian hitman said, "He did. Look at my face. He did. I did not. God damn it, I bitch slapped you because you's a bitch." And I busted out laughing at that point. Started walking away, and Mitch was like, "Where are you going? You're the president." And I said, "Dude, I done pills today. You smoked rock. I know you did. You do it every day." I said, me being a president does not apply in this situation. So anyhow, this was the type of stuff. This is like the type of stuff that went on in this house. Okay? Absolutely mental nuts. The one guy who I said at the beginning I knew before, I thought he was setting us up. His mom was the one that gave him all the pills every month. A whole bunch of Roxy's, whole bunch of fentanyl patches, whole bunch of all that. Same person as that. He ain't with us anymore. He's passed away. The other guy who ended up becoming friends with, he was one of the people that testified for me in my case against everybody else who was coerced into saying stuff. And he was one of two people, the other guy being the guy whose life I saved, who spoke up. I believe he got a time cut, got let out of drug court with having to do additional time for testifying in my case. But shoot, he's forever good in my book. Without him, I wouldn't be sitting here right now. But anyhow, but he ended up robbing a pharmacy. He ended up going to prison. The one guy isn't with us anymore, so it didn't have a positive outcome for these people. But anyway, so what basically happened, and I wasn't there this night, but I heard all about it. I heard every little bit about it. So the meat truck driver, his boyfriend shows up at the house, at the halfway house, and he's got grocery bag. He shows up on his moped, and he's got a couple grocery bags full of like the jugs, like the big jugs of pills. I never see these before, but this is what they said they were. They said they were not Roxy 30, but Oxy 30s. They said they were brown or something like that. I never saw those, but I mean, that's what they said they were. And he shows up there just having robbed, looking to sell some of them, this, and that. He had just robbed a pharmacy. It's like a mile down the street. Can you see somebody robbing a pharmacy and driving away uphill on a moped? From the pharmacy to this halfway house, he had to go uphill. So that thing had to slow down to about 20 as they're slowly watching his taillight fade off into the sunset. So that was funny to me. But anyway, he's at the house, and this started up a whole big conundrum of stuff. Okay, because see, his little boyfriend, he's messed up, just robbed a pharmacy, stuff like that. Well, apparently, the hitman made everything's all good. Sorry, to make sure the message, family stuff. But anyway, mom's at Cancer Treatment Centers of America right now, so just check up. So sorry, I'm a worrier. But anyhow, the guy who's the Russian hitman made some type of a pass at the meat truck driver's boyfriend, and it didn't leave things good. So anyway, after a while, he sold some, did some of them. There's a whole big fight over that. And then he takes off on his moped. There's a whole big bunch of BS, okay? A whole big bunch of BS that happened. And I end up getting back to the house just like a day later. Everybody's sitting down at the couch. Everybody drink. We had Jack Daniels. We were drinking. Some people was putting in a rig, putting it on everything else. I don't know why people do stuff like that. People do stupid things. I done stupid stuff like that. So, I mean, I can't act like I'm, you know what I mean? I did dumb stuff too. Plenty of dumb stuff. But anyhow, we're sitting down there, and the meat truck driver, I guess because his boyfriend, the issues they just had, him maybe talking back to the Russian hitman or whatever, this and that, he's got drunk, and he's admitted some pretty crazy stuff. He basically admitted that, it was basically rumored that he'd been setting people up with the police, with the vice that he'd been caught. And that's how he started telling about that, about setting people up with the vice. But then he got so drunk that he started claiming that he himself was a DEA agent, and he had been this whole time. And I said, so when I was driving all that dough for your brother, and your boyfriend was doing all them drugs and selling them for your brother too, you were a DEA agent? Sir, I need you to come, sir. And I said, he wouldn't call me Spencer, he was calling me sir, like he was somebody authoritative. And I'm like, oh my God. And he was serious about this. But at first it was stupid and annoying, but the drunker he got, the funnier he actually got. And the hitman, the Russian hitman, tried to act like it was a misunderstanding with him, doing some off stuff. You know what I mean? It was some stuff that was off, based making pass at his boyfriend or whatever. And anyway, meat truck driver was sitting there, and he goes down the line talking about each one of us. And Curtis Blind, he was like in the kitchen at this point, walking back and forth. And the first thing he said was, Curtis walked by and he said, Curtis, you're straight. And he said, you're goddamn right I am. Shit, the hell you talking about? He walked on, that made me laugh. And then he looked at the next guy, and he goes, "You might be a little gay." And then he looks at the other guy, and he goes, "You're kind of gay." And then he looks at me, and he says, "Spencer, you're the straightest person I've ever met in my entire life." You know, I don't judge people or anything like that, but, you know, like, if somebody comes, like, okay, there was this thing, like, whenever I was, like, younger, it happened over and over, and I kept wondering, why can't this happen with girls? Like, where dudes would say stuff to me, and I get real odd about that, you know what I mean? And, you know, it's just kind of my reaction. I'm probably autistic, so I'm sure my reaction was probably very awkward. But anyhow, that's probably why he said that, because, you know, like, you'd say something like that to, like, something, like, pass me or something, I'd be real uncomfortable or shut it down real quick. Nothing ain't, but you could see, like, no, don't do peanut butter. But anyhow, and then he looks at the guy, the Russian hitman, and he goes, and his name was Jonathan, I'll just go ahead and say it. He goes, "Jonathan, you're gay." And Jonathan was not happy about that. "Why would you say that? Blah, blah, blah." "You are." He said, and basically he's like, he said something like, "We know our own." He said, "You are." And we were all, I was rolling especially at all this, sitting down at this table and everything else. But also kind of like freaked way out, because this dude just has said that he's setting people up. Then he claimed he's a DEA agent. And then at that point, I don't know what he's saying is true, what he's saying isn't true. Oh, press this all good. But basically, they stack charges on him, okay? They stack charges on people, and they stack charges on him. They had hit him with 5 distribution of heroin charges. And he told on all them people, and he still ended up getting like 2 years. First time ever being in trouble. And he still got 2 years. He got that judge that promised he's going to give out all those years. I'm pretty sure he got like 10 years. They suspended a bunch or whatever. But anyhow. Yeah, the next day, I don't know how they would have found his boyfriend that quick. I'm about 99.9% sure he turned in the Moped pharmacy robber, his boyfriend, because he ended up getting arrested. I'm pretty sure he was mad at him because of the stuff with Jonathan, and I'm pretty sure he's trying to get less time. So yeah, he ended up arrested. But yeah, it was an odd spectacle. This house was like, man, it was something else. And I got another story, man. Okay, what I was going to say though, what I had an issue, just kept seeming to happen. Kept seeming like I had this look, like I looked like I was like a 15 or 16-year-old when I was like 18, 19, 20. You know, when I clean shaved face, I looked like I was a kid. I had more, dude, that I had to be like, listen, I ain't that way. It's not what it is, you know. And I kept thinking, why can't this happen with girls? It's like, all girls, I wish that could happen with them. How come this keeps on happening to me? I'm like, this is awkward as can be. I don't know how to respond and stuff. There was a dude, looked like Mr. Slade from South Park, and I'll tell this in another story. I ended up getting kicked out of this house. And it was after the second time I tried to poke this dude up. I had a Michael Myers butcher knife the first time, came at him. He said some off stuff, you know. I'll have to tell that in a different one. But basically, I think he told people that, basically, not only as I wasn't interested in him, but I think he was in fear for his life. So he told that I was using, and ended up getting me kicked out of the house. Ended up getting a bunch of us kicked out. Got the meat truck driver, a bunch of us kicked out. But anyhow, some wild stuff happened. But how you going to rob a pharmacy on a moped? And then your getaway route is driving uphill. You know those things go like 35 on flat land, going up a hill? I know I had a moped. I was 14, I got a Honda Ruckus, which it's pretty neat looking moped. It don't look, you know, but like for a getaway vehicle, how are you going to drive away uphill on a moped? It couldn't have been going more than 20 miles an hour up that hill. Drive and get away on a moped. He got away though. He got away, and apparently he was at the house, came by with all them pills, looking to sell some of them and everything else. Some wild stuff, man. some wild stuff. I got a lot more stories about that house. I don't know why I haven't told more of them. Like, this house was like, if you've seen the TV show Shameless, it was like full of characters that could have been out of that TV show. I mean, seriously, I mean, more or less, I'm basically Frank from Shameless. If I were to keep on that same path and keep on doing drugs, basically that's who I'd turn out like, would be Frank from Shameless. If you haven't seen that show, it easily might be my favorite show of all time. My mom and sister kept trying to get me to watch it. I'm like, yeah, whatever. I'll get to it sooner or later. And I figured, yeah, if they like it, it can't be too cool. You know, I mean, it was a douchebag thing for me to think, because it was actually one of the funniest shows I have ever seen in my entire life, without question. I mean, it's one of the best shows ever, but that's like what this house was like. When I first got to this house, people were paying bills a little bit. The one guy, the Russian hitman, was still a cook at a restaurant. He ended up getting fired from that. He got kicked out of the house by the main people, and after he left, or after he was supposed to be kicked out, he just waited till they left, and he came back and he kept staying there. He knew we was getting high, so what we going to do? Call him, tell him, listen, you got to get him out of there? So he kept living at the house after he was kicked out. There was some wild stuff. I'm telling you, it was some wild stuff that happened at this house. There was more stuff, crazy stuff that happened. Some funny stuff that I've got some stories about. Lord have mercy. So anyway, if you've liked the video, press the like button. If not, it's 21 minutes and 18 seconds of your life, which you'll never get back. But I hope you did. The one story about that one Mr. Slave-looking mother that made that pass, and then I end up trying to come at him with that knife a couple times. That's a wild one. That's a funny one too. That's a funny one too. My mom will remember about that, because I told my mom, I said, listen, I said, you know, I might end up in jail. I might need you to bail me out. I said, there's this weird dude. He won't quit. He's crossing the line. He's crossing the line over and over again. And you know, I might have to stab him. You know, and it was predatory. You'll understand when you hear it. It wasn't just me. It's not me just being afraid, you know, of people or something like that. You know, no disrespect to people, because that wasn't how it was. The one guy who talked about there needs to be some cock in here. That guy was a cool dude. You know, can't say a whole lot bad about that dude. He was respectful. Knew if you wasn't like that, he wasn't going to push it or make you uncomfortable. And you know, I could say that dude was cool. Didn't have a problem with him. We were good. Even the meat truck driver. You know, he get annoying. He get annoying sometimes. After that thing with Sean happened, his boyfriend Sean, he always talked about that. And I kept trying to go to bed. I had basically like the presidential suite of that house. It's this giant house, but it was the only room downstairs. So I opened my door. It's the kitchen. My room was attached to the kitchen. It had like this little latch that I could lock. And I kept trying to go to my room, and he kept falling, trying to cry about Sean. And I said, listen, I'm going to bed. So I started to shut the door, and he put his hand stopping the door. And he's like, and I can't believe Sean did. And I'm like, I have to go to bed, my man. I'm going to bed. You know, talk to them about Sean. Talk to the wall about Sean. You know, call somebody about Sean. I don't want to hear about Sean. Like, oh my God, you're terrible. And I'm like, dude, I know you're hurting right now, but you know, it is what it is. I got to go to bed. You've been talking about this for 2 hours straight. I'm going to bed. Anyway, but you know, he wasn't bad most of the time, but you know, that he got annoying that time. You know, had shut that dang door right in his face. Oh Lord, that was a wild house. Man, so broke back then, didn't have a radio, but we had this, like, I had like one of those little plastic clock radios. And on the local radio station, the hit station, they play the same 20 songs over and over again. The songs from that time, I can't hear them. I heard those songs so many times on that radio because, man, it got to where nobody was paying nothing. We didn't have phone. We didn't have internet. The only thing we had was power, and I don't know how we kept up with that. But I got some more funny stories about this I'll tell another time. So if you liked the video, press the like button. I hope you did. But yeah, robbed a pharmacy on a dang moped. I mean, you couldn't make that up. That's some silly stuff. I know. Shoot. And one of my friends, dang, I just remembered something. I'll tell this another time too. My roommate's dad one time was on the evening news. He led the police on a moped chase through southeast the White Ghetto. Okay, think about this. Moped can go between houses. It can go down alleys. It ain't going to go very fast, but he led them on like a 2-hour moped chase drunk. And his son, my roommate, oh man, I felt so bad for him because everybody clowned him, talking about his dad running from the police on a moped for 2 hours drunk. Every time they get close to getting him or hop off, he'd dip around them. They end up smashing him, cuffing him, bust him up. But yeah, that's another thing I thought about, his dad running from the police on that moped. Lord, that's it. I'm going to shut up.